Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's CCPL seminar. It brings me great pleasure to welcome back Professor Saskia Hockney. And I did a quick check to see when you were in Hong Kong last. I believe it was just before COVID, around May 2019. And I think there are two very important changes that have happened in your life since then. You're no longer at University of Queen Mary University. You're now a professor at Sydney Law School. And the other important change is you're now developing your excellent work on art crime into the technology sphere. Today you're going to tell us what the heck is an NFT and all the interesting criminal law implications of NFT. So we're very grateful that you're able to spend your time with us here. So Professor Hockney, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Simon. And needless to say, I wouldn't be at the University of Sydney without you, because you wrote me one of the references. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me here today. It's a great pleasure to be here again. And I've actually, in this very room, given one of my first long workshops on art crime. And it was really great because a lot of practitioners came, and that's really where we want this research to get to. This, compared to the art crime research, is a little bit of a fake, because we don't even know whether NFTs are art or whether we might want to call them art. So I just call them NFTs. And what we're going to look at today is how we actually fit those NFTs into the big world of financial crime, whether we even need to fit them into the big world of financial crime, and if we want to, how we might be able to do that or not. And this is research I've done with my partner in life and in crime, Professor Colin King, who's also at the University of Sydney now. And this is an article which I'll give you the details of at the end of the presentation if you're interested in learning more about NFTs and financial crime. Right. First slide, you can see here, many of you will know this NFT. It's probably the most well-known NFT in the world. It's Beeple's Every Day's the first 5,000 days. And you might not be able to see this here, but it's 5,000 individual little paintings that he pulled together into one NFT, which was then sold for $69,364,250 US. So it was sold by Christie's. It was the first entirely digital work of art that Christie's ever sold. And it was the most expensive work of a single artist after Jeff Koons and David Hockney. So a very expensive piece. And since then, obviously, the art world knows NFTs. When I say it was sold by Christie's, that should already be quite surprising, because the idea of NFTs was not that they would be sold by big auction houses. The idea of NFTs was that they, at least if we talk about art NFTs, that they would revolutionize the art market, that they would be an alternative to the consumerism of the art market, that every artist or every person who wanted to create art could create an NFT and then make it freely available to people who actually really appreciated that particular piece of art. NFTs were made to cut out the middleman, which Christie's clearly is. And well, we see that hasn't happened. Why hasn't that happened? Well, because suddenly there was money in NFTs. And where there's money, there will be middlemen. And that's exactly what happened here. So we already know, okay, the ideal of the NFT didn't really happen, but are they also actually attracting crime? What I'm going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about what NFTs are, what the uses and benefits of NFTs are, because there clearly are uses and benefits of them. There are also many more types of NFTs than the art NFT or the collectible. What you're seeing here is a CryptoPunk. That's a collectible, probably one of the most expensive ones. We're going to talk about art and NFTs because it's quite interesting, or it's quite important for the law to know whether NFTs are art, because if NFTs are art, certain sort of legal requirements attached to them. Or are they crypto assets, which is really important for money laundering regulation. Then the potential for abuse, generally, the potential for abuse by financial crime, and some conclusions. So I'm starting with the CryptoPunk, just to give you a little idea as to what an NFT is. An NFT can be a lot of things. An NFT can be a video, an NFT can be a photo, an NFT can be a picture, well, usually they're JPEGs. It can be a movie. It can be with sound, it can be without sound, it can be many things. So anything you can create a digital file of can be an NFT. This is just a picture. And some of you might say it's not even a very elaborate picture, but it's a very expensive picture. Yeah, CryptoPunks are collectibles. They were created by two software developers calling themselves Lava Lab. And they actually put the CryptoPunks out there in a limited edition of 10,000, and they were free. So everybody who knew anything about NFTs could go and claim their CryptoPunk for free. And then they could start selling them. And then why is that good for Lava Lab when they start being sold? Because there's a contract that attaches to the NFT. And in that contract, it basically says every time this is sold, a certain percentage of the sales price goes to Lava Lab. And so they make money with it. Beeple, the artist who did the first NFT you saw there, also used that concept. He put NFTs out for, how much was it? Very little, for $10. Limited edition of 1,000, and I think that's made him nearly more money than his 5,000 days. So they make money by other people selling these sort of pieces. And every time sort of I present on my research, I sort of look up the prices. And this piece was sold for, the last sale of this CryptoPunk that you see here was for $7.57 million US, which I find quite surprising. Now, NFTs have gone down, so we might ask ourselves, oh, why are we still sitting here? You know, will they still be sort of relevant in the future? Well, they're going back up again. So since November last year, they've gone up significantly again, which I found quite surprising. So just staying on the example of CryptoPunks, the cheapest CryptoPunk in November last year was $88,149. The cheapest CryptoPunk yesterday, when I looked it up, was $148,000. So they are going up. The daily value went up from 201,000 to 786,000, and the weekly value from 1.57 million to 8.14 million. Yeah, so they're not dead. They fluctuate because the people who play with them. And that's why they go up and down. I mean, yes, they've gone down since 2021, but they're not done. They're still there. And that leads me to one more, just quickly, because it's a terrible picture, but it's another very expensive Bored Ape. The Bored Ape Yacht Club. They are also down, as everybody else is down. They did a different concept. They didn't just sell their bored apes. You could claim a bored ape for $1,900 US when they were first released, also in a limited edition of 10,000. But they attached a membership to them. So you also became a member of the Bored Ape Yacht Club. So you can see this sort of playing with an elite with exclusivity that attached to them, which kind of made them interesting to be traded and bought. And they are, because they went down, they are now doing something else. They are now developing games with the bored apes, which you can play if you own one. So hoping that will also then put the prices up, and I'm sure it will. In the first edition of the Bored Apes, all you could do with them was, or the most interesting thing you could do was write on a virtual toilet wall. I'm not kidding. I didn't even know that, but that apparently was very interesting for people who bought them. Okay, so that's the Bored Ape. But what are NFTs? So NFTs are like a Bitcoin, but they are not a Bitcoin. Bitcoins are, the idea of the Bitcoin is that each item has the same value and is interchangeable. NFTs are all different and are not interchangeable. That's why they're called non-fungible. They are like the Bitcoin on the blockchain. The blockchain that NFTs were initially minted on was Ethereum. They were using Ethereum technology, and the blockchain, I'm sure you're all aware of that, but it's like a ledger that is decentralized on different servers around the world. When I talk to people who've never heard of NFTs or Bitcoins, I usually explain that, especially to lawyers, with the footnoting system. Yeah, so many of you who've done footnotes will know if you're not using a system and you make a mistake, you have to delete a footnote, everything else has to be redone. And that's exactly the same as the blockchain. Yeah, so you can't take something out of the blockchain without everything else changing. And therefore, the idea is that it's a really sort of safe system. It cannot easily be corrupted. We cannot, in theory, steal NFTs. Yeah. It is actually really good. We can already see when we think about art provenance. Yeah, it's a fantastic means. And I think that's where it can be used still in the future. It's a fantastic thing to report or record new art on. Yeah, which will then be always linked to that particular person. You can see who bought it, who sold it. How do I know about all these prices of CryptoPunks and Bored Apes? Because it's openly available. We can go into that, and I'm really not a techie. Yeah, you might have noticed that by now. But you can go into, like, you can just Google a CryptoPunk, and you can see, if you click on an individual CryptoPunk, you can see what it was sold for, who bid on it, what was offered for it. You can just see that openly on the internet without much prior knowledge. And that should be really safe, right? Because when we talk about financial crime, when we talk about money laundering, we can follow all these people up. But obviously, the money you pay for it if you're using a shell company, can still be a shell company. Yeah, so the names are not real names. Yeah, and therefore it's very tricky. What it's really good for, it's for financial crime research, because as you will see in a minute, Chainalysis has done a lot of research where they can see this is an illicit address, and then they can follow all the money that comes from that illicit address. We can obviously not do that really in the art market in the same way. Okay. Users and benefits. There's obviously much more to NFTs than just it being art or being silly collectibles. They have real users. And I start with the real users that are, not real users for someone who's not into gaming, but for the gaming industry, NFTs have real users. And one of the most sort of well-known ones for the gaming industry were CryptoKitties or CryptoCats. So you can raise a cat from an individual gene NFT. More important, you can buy in-game assets. Yeah, you can make your sword for your particular game. You can make your weapons generally as NFTs. You can buy your Gucci sunglasses for Second Life. Yeah, that for someone who's never played a video game like me doesn't sound, that exciting, but I know that for many people it is. And it's great for the game developers because they can factor it into their games. It's great for the designers because they can make crazy things. And for the users, because they enjoy seeing new things and owning them. Yeah, again, you have that element of exclusivity. Is there loads of money in it? Well, it's good for the game economy, buying and selling. For financial crime, that's probably not where the brunt is. I mean, I could give a whole different presentation on in-game currency and financial crime. Yeah, but that's a different presentation. Today, we just focus on NFTs. Then another one where NFTs are really useful is tickets. Yeah, the ticketing systems. I don't know, have any of you ever seen an NFT as a ticket? They do that for big rock concerts these days. And you can't even take a photograph of it. Yeah, it's impossible. So you know that the person who bought that ticket, unless they give their phone to someone else, will also get the ticket. Yeah, so that's great for ticket, for cutting out ticket touting, again, for cutting out a middleman, making prices go up and so on. So that's sort of a really great idea. Then merchandise, whether that's useful or not, but that's one of the uses of it. The NBA does it, football clubs, Chelsea does it. The NBA does like the best shots. You get like a little video clip NFT, you can buy that. That's obviously good for them, and it's a type of merchandise they're using. Is there money in it? Yeah, maybe, but it's probably not that much attracting financial crime. And you can use it as utility, which is where there's absolutely zero financial crime aspect to it, but it's very, very useful, yeah? And it's used already a lot in supply chain management. And that's also like when you think supply chain, the same idea applies to using it for provenance. Yeah, so it's very useful in that way. But then we're not looking at the thing or the JPEG itself. We're actually looking at it as something that attaches to a real thing and proves provenance. So art and NFTs, you're probably not interested, but this is a mad meerkat. And if you were still thinking of buying one of those, they are still achievable. They are still affordable, but I'm not sure you want one. NFTs obviously are code and not art, but some people consider NFTs to be an artistic movement like Cubism, yeah, or Futurism. The law does not, yeah. So far the law does not consider NFTs to be art. The upside, I already told you, the idea was that we can all make art, we can all potentially sell our art. So a very sort of open idea, a democratic idea of creating a new art market in NFTs. You could have a secure sale. The artist could ensure that there was payment, and not only payment once, but payment whenever their art was being resold. Actually, NFTs were developed in 2014, and the first artists using them were photographers. Because in photography, it was obviously really, really tricky, A, to prove provenance, and B, to then get your money when the photograph was used again and again and again. Here, I can put all these pictures up because it's a picture, it's not the NFT. And so I'm not costing anyone any money. But with a photograph, that would be very different. And so with the minting of the NFT, that was really useful for photography in the beginning. But so that was the idea. You had this transparency, you could prove provenance, you can prove that you did it. I mean, obviously all relative, yeah, because I can put up a picture and claim that I did that picture and it's not really me either. The transactions were easy, so selling and buying was really easy. And you had no transport, you had no insurance for the transport, and so on. So that was sort of the idea behind it. Everybody could participate, yeah? So the 12-year-old from Hackney could sell his dinosaurs, NFTs, and he did, and, you know, make enough money to go to university for 5 years, and he was happy. He would have never been accepted by a gallery, obviously. He would have never been sold by a gallery, but he could do that as an NFT. So this idea that we're actually making art for what it's worth in the eye of the beholder, that was definitely there. And that is still there. I mean, the boys from Hackney still exist who make money with NFTs. The idea was not to have a gatekeeper that siphons off the money, as Christie's does with Beeple. There were no dealers, or there shouldn't be any dealers, galleries, or auction houses. To be fair, the dealers and galleries are still mostly true. There are very few dealers. I mean, there are dealers who sell NFTs, but not that many. And we have our hobby of going to art fairs and looking for NFTs. You don't find many. Even in the art fairs where they promote that they have NFTs, they're actually quite hard to find, and they're not that prominent. Because the traditional art world still hasn't really, cottoned onto that, apart from the really big ones, but they are then sold by the auction houses. So I already said you can earn royalties each time there is a successful trade, which is great for the artist. You can prove ownership. And then also the idea was that they would be immune from the greed and speculation. Obviously, that's not true. However, is that not true? Is Beeple being hyped or not? I'm not sure. It's definitely not true for the collectibles. Yeah, the collectibles are being hyped. The collectibles create their own hype, as I said, by, you know, creating a club, by creating games and all of that. So like in the art market, value is driven by uniqueness and scarcity. Do we have potential for abuse? I think a lot of authors saw that clash. They saw the clash in the ideal of the NFT and in the actual sort of practice later on in the NFT. So NFTs were embedded in the art world long before 2021, since 2014, but they weren't for profit. They were seen as something that could, for example, give a photographer the possibility to prove provenance. Yeah, so these kind of things. They were not done to be sold for 69 million. Yeah, that was not the idea. The idea was everybody can sell their art, buy their art, but not that there was be massive profit. And now there's a blurring, obviously, of the non-profit and the full-profit parts of that sector, and that always creates a certain imbalance. What we think is that where there's money, there's art crime, or where there's money, there's financial crime. And we see that there's money in NFTs, there will be crime. What we see from a legal point of view is that there's not money in every NFTs. There's the NFTs that are there to create money or that are very expensive, and then there's NFTs that are actually just functional. And that's also where the law is going right now. And that's where the insecurities start to exist. Like, what do we do with a functional NFT? Is that still something we need to regulate, or is that okay and we only need to regulate the other ones? And then some people say, well, the other ones, they are assets, they're already regulated, so we don't need any regulation for that. As I said, 2021 was the year of the NFT. NFTs were the most expensive they've ever been in 2021. They've since gone down, fluctuating, as I told in the beginning. There are obviously similarities to the art market. There's the high value, the portability, provenance, anonymity of the sellers and buyers. And therefore, some colleagues say that far from preventing crime, NFTs are instrumental in making it. From a legal point of view, we're not that concerned with NFTs attracting crime, but we're concerned with what the law does with it. And a colleague, Emily Gold, has written in 2022, well, we already have a lot of laws that apply to NFTs. But then we have some laws that don't exactly apply to NFTs, so we're playing catch up. And that's what we're going to talk about, or what I'm going to talk about now, is what do we actually have that can apply. And theft, generally, when we look at England and Wales, theft can apply. In English law, theft is the appropriation of property belonging to another, and it has to be dishonest and with the intention to permanently deprive. That's all easy apart from the property part. First of all, can we actually steal an NFT? Yes, of course we can steal an NFT. We can steal the physical sort of hard copy of an NFT. We can steal a USB. We can steal all of that. But we can also just hack into someone's system and steal an NFT and then quickly sell it, use a crypto mixer, and then draw out fiat currency, the money, and we have stolen an NFT. So theft of NFTs is possible. The problem for the law was, are NFTs property? And in Osborne, which was a case, actually it was a restraining order for someone who was trying to sell NFTs, and they were being barred from doing so because the NFTs were supposed to be stolen. The court actually said, yes, yeah, we can treat NFTs as property. So there's at least a realistically arguable case that such tokens are to be treated as property as a matter of English law. And then the Law Commission later on says crypto token that is capable of attracting personal property rights. And as long as something can attract personal property rights, they were seen as property. So we have no problem with theft nowadays. Yeah, at least in the common law, we can safely say that we will mostly consider that as consider that an NFT can be stolen. Fraud, again, tricky, but not that tricky. Yeah, so we can pretend to be an artist and mint an NFT under that artist's name. That's not so problematic because do we have a misrepresentation? Yes, we do. Yeah, we are pretending to be someone else. Is there sort of a gain being made upon that misrepresentation? Yes. I know in English law, fraud is massive. Everything is fraud. Every lying is basically fraud. A famous article on that. I'm not sure about Hong Kong. It's as well very similar. In Australia, in New South Wales, it's not. Yeah, but under English law, this is definitely fraud. Problematic is the generation of NFTs of existing art without the artist's permission. So is the misrepresentation or the misleading that I don't have the artist's permission already enough to consist in fraud? I would say yes, because otherwise a person wouldn't pay money for it. The person definitely only wants to pay for it if they know that the artist gave permission. And also the value would decrease if people knew that the person didn't give permission. So I think it's relevant, but we don't have any case law, so we can only assume. Then we have the market offenses, and they are much, much trickier because here we need particular things. So here in the Melania Trump case, we have wash trading, which wasn't prosecuted, by the way, but the question is, she here bought her own NFTs through a firm that was connected to her, driving the prices up so that the price was later on higher when she sold them, which is the actually very common definition of wash trading. And the question is, well, when is that actually relevant? Has a crime been committed? We didn't actually have anything here. Where it's clear and where we do have case law is for insider trading. But here is the case of Nathaniel Chastain, which you will probably have heard of. He was the product manager of OpenSea, and he saw every time that one of the NFTs would be sort of showcased on the website, on their homepage. He knew it in advance. He bought it. When it was showcased, it was much more expensive afterwards. He then sold it. Yeah. So I would say it's a clear case of insider trading. They didn't even charge him with that. They charged him with wire fraud, which he was then also convicted of, because they thought insider trading a bit tricky, because for insider trading, the NFT should be a security. And an NFT is not a security. An NFT might be a security if we have a chart or a fractional NFT, or as we call it, an NFT. So if we break up an NFT in particular shares and then we sell that to different people, that then becomes a security, and that could be relevant for insider trading. The US law enforcement was much, much more clever than that. They didn't even go for that because it was too shaky, and they went for wire fraud. We don't know whether we would see an NFT as well. We know an NFT is not a security, that's for sure. But whether a shard would be, that's more likely. So we do have other offenses, however, that we can fit them under. So we should still think about these questions, but probably not too much. And then the tricky one, money laundering. Of course, high value attracts money laundering. The criminal law offense of money laundering is not problematic whatsoever. What is problematic in relation to NFTs is regulatory approaches. Yeah, how and as what can we force people to report on money sort of laundered through NFTs? And HM Treasury in the UK has had their ideas on that. And here's where the question, is it art, becomes important. So can we fit it under the regulation that it needs to be reported by dealers and auction houses as art if it's over the 10,000 euro threshold? And the answer is it's not art. So as it's not seen as art, it doesn't fall under the regulation as art. However, it could fall under the regulation as a crypto asset. And then the question is, are NFTs a crypto asset? And that's why I started this presentation by saying there are many different types of NFTs. Because yes, some could be considered a crypto asset and others couldn't. And that's why we have here in the bottom part, focus on the features, intangibility, cryptographic authentication, use of a distributed transaction ledger, decentralization, and rule by consensus. So we're kind of looking at, what is more of an asset and what isn't an asset. And the Financial Action Task Force says more or less the same thing. They're saying generally they're not virtual assets, but they could be virtual assets, in which case we've already regulated them as assets. And here's the FATF guidance. Bottom line, we need to consider them on a case-by-case basis. What we need to distinguish is, well, if it's an NFT which is used as for supply chain management, clearly that wouldn't fall under this. If it's art or if it's a collectible, if it's actually used as an asset would be used, yes, but then it falls under the regulation. So we do not need necessarily new regulation. So that is the guidance so far. We're not there yet. We don't know that yet. All we know is that it's not art. It could be a crypto asset, and then it's decided on a case-by-case basis. For the people who actually then have to make that decision, this is not very helpful. But it's not like if it's an asset, you will see it. And here's again the idea of the art, that it's not art. Last but not least, sanction. Are NFTs used by sanction evasion? And the same as it's very easy to sort of see whether NFTs are used for money laundering purposes, because we can look at the illicit addresses that invest in NFTs. We can also see addresses with a sanction risk that invest in NFTs. And that's why we know that there's obviously some investment here, and that they can potentially, and that they are being used for sanctions evasion. So they were flagged, for example, the use of cryptocurrencies by Russians. Generally, financial sanctions regulations do not differentiate between crypto assets and other forms of assets, so we have no issue in relation to the sanctions evasion from a legal point of view. Last but not least, NFTs, can they be compared to cryptocurrencies or fiat currencies? They are their own thing. And with a currency, you wouldn't have that whole legal problem in relation to, are they an asset or not? They're not a currency. They might be an asset. Then there's a risk in building trust in NFTs. So obviously, because we don't have the clear legal situation. Some people might not want to invest in NFTs. I don't think that will keep the criminals from investing in NFTs, but it will keep some other people from investing in NFTs. And so that might be one of the downsides of not having a clear legal situation. Also, not having a clear legal situation is really detrimental to enforcement. Yeah. So will law enforcement officers risk to just go for a particular offense when they're not 100% sure that that offense might not then stand up in court? We have no expertise in the area by law enforcement. I just said to Simon last time I gave that presentation, I was invited by customs because they'd never really seen or heard as to how these things work. So that's really important. There's absolutely no expertise. And then there's no expertise and they don't have a clear legal situation. Are they really going to go for these kinds of offenses? And then obviously the uncertainty is not only there for money laundering, it's also for insider trading. And so we still have a situation that is really open to exploitation, at least in two types of offenses. And that's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Saskia, for that very interesting presentation. This university is celebrating its 111th anniversary, and to mark that anniversary, they have created NFTs. And so I'm an owner of a couple of those NFTs. I have a photograph of Dr. Sanyat Singh on the campus, and I don't think it's going up in value, and I don't think anyone's going to want to steal it either. But yes, we are seeing more of them. I think people in the audience, of course, will be reflecting on what perhaps might be the legal situation in Hong Kong for NFTs. I think some of the implications will be the same because our theft ordinance is basically the UK Theft Act, so it'll be very similar. But also a couple of other things I should mention. There's a very important judgment from our court of first instance going back to actually March of last year. It's an insolvency case, and the question was whether crypto assets is property for purpose of bankruptcy. And the court said yes. It's a very good judgment, Justice Linda Chan, and actually refers to an old judgment by Lord Wilberforce about what is property and finds the qualities in crypto assets. I think it would apply the same way to NFTs as well. The other important thing to mention is that we do have legislation on virtual assets, and I'm sure it's probably similar to the UK. So our anti-money laundering ordinance has been amended to take into account virtual assets. But of course, that ordinance doesn't deal with the hard crimes. So the hard crimes is in another ordinance, which is about property. So again, cases like Osborne will be quite useful to see NFTs or crypto assets as property that could be the subject of money laundering and restraint and confiscation as well. One thing I wanted to ask you about, because you bring two things that you said that sounded in contradiction, right? You began by saying we cannot steal NFTs, and then of course you said later on that we can steal. So maybe could you clarify that?
Well, there's so many ways of corrupting an NFT, even in the process where I put myself down as the owner of an NFT. I can put things down that are not true. So that's probably more fraud, but it can also be theft. And then we can't steal an NFT on paper, so there'd still be the ledger. But we can steal the NFT if we go into someone's crypto wallet. And hackers can go into people's crypto wallets. They've done that. I mean, there's statistics as to how many NFTs are stolen each year. So that's one way of stealing them. And then we can steal the actual the hard drive. If you keep your NFT on a hard drive, we can steal that. So obviously there's the potential of stealing NFTs. But the idea was that it's safer than any other asset, that it's safer than money, that it's safer that it's as safe as crypto, definitely safer than a work of art on a wall.
Well, of course, this is it's a moving object, and I'm sure when we invite you back again next year or the following year, there will be much more development in this area. But I think you've been extremely helpful to us in understanding what is an NFT and also the legal implications of this new phenomenon. These two articles that are referred to on the slide, they're very detailed. They provide a lot more discussion of these issues. So I do commend them to all of you. I think both of them are written by you and Professor King. Is that right? Yes. Would everyone join me in thanking Professor Hoffnagel for today's presentation?